Fast and Furious meets Pride and Prejudice. This is the crossover I never knew that I needed. We're talking Regency England, illicit carriage races at midnight, murder mysteries and criminals, neurodivergency, found family, even a little bit of dressmaking in there. And somehow this shouldn't work, but it absolutely does. The book is called Fast and Fastidious by R.M. Caldwell, and I read this book in 2 days. I think because I'm reading a lot of dense historical stuff at the moment, I just needed that kind of quick read, and this was the book. And apparently this book was an unfinished play about a Regency heroine and a highwayman. And this book is giving Enola Holmes mixed with Agatha Christie, mixed with Pride and Prejudice, a little bit of Emma, Jane Austen, and definitely Fast and Furious. I'm a big Fast and Furious fan. I love Tokyo Drift. That is like one of my favorite movies. So I also love Jane Austen, and this is just the perfect mashup. As soon as I saw it, I thought I need to read this book. So the main character is Lucy, and when we meet her, she's someone who kind of struggles a bit with social environments. When there's lots of people, lots of talking, she really struggles with reading sarcasm and understanding social cues. So from the get-go, we kind of understand that she is on the neurodivergent scale. And the really interesting thing about her is that she is extremely intelligent and focuses heavily on mechanics and engineering. And so she has this love for carriages from a little girl when she got given a little model version of a carriage. Funnily enough, one of those carriages is called the Pemberley Cross. We know Mr. Darcy lives at Pemberley. And as a child, she kind of deconstructed this miniature carriage, pulled all the pieces apart, and then put them all back together. So in her brain, that's what makes sense to her. And when it comes to social environments, funnily enough, the Regency era kind of perfectly fits with that, because she literally has a book that has all the social rules and etiquettes for that particular time. And she utilizes that as a way of being able to get through social events. So she knows what the rules are and how to have conversations and what's proper and what's not proper. So it actually works together really well. So anyway, she starts going to these night races where people from all different classes essentially race their horses and carriages, and they make all these adjustments to the carriages and use different mechanics and technology to upgrade them, like they do obviously in Fast and Furious. And these people are from all different classes. So you've got servants, you've got nobility, you've got all different races, ethnicities that are coming along to these events. So it's a really good equalizer, and I guess a new way of looking at the Regency era to actually see what it would look like if there were these kind of secret underground races and class wasn't really part of the story. So I loved seeing that so much. So on one side, it's a really accurate picture of the Regency era, the Austenverse, and then on another page, it's totally accurate for a Fast and Furious movie. So I really loved how they kind of connected together in the book. Now, the interesting thing about Lucy's neurodivergence is that there's a lot of theories out there that Mr. Darcy, his character, is neurodivergent. And I can't see it as much in the book or as much in the BBC series, but I can really see it in my favourite film, the 2005 Joe Wright's version of Pride and Prejudice with Matthew McFadden as Mr. Darcy. I can really see just the awkwardness that is described through Lucy, but how Mr. Darcy really mirrors that in the film, how he really struggles at social events. And he even talks about how he really struggles starting conversations with new people and picking up on social cues or propriety, that kind of thing. So I really loved getting an understanding of Lucy's mind and then kind of translating that or potentially projecting that onto perhaps how Mr. Darcy was feeling at events and balls and things like that. And it's not just the main character Lucy who has that kind of neurodivergence background, it's other characters who talk about their siblings who have a similar thing to what Lucy has and how they struggle with it in some ways, but also how it makes them and helps them with their particular focus. For example, one character has a brother who is somewhere on the autism spectrum, and he doesn't like it when people are over, so he kind of hides, but then he is like the most experienced watchmaker in Switzerland. So it gives you this insight into there are some things that they struggle with and other things that they completely excel at. And Lucy is very much the same. The cool thing about this book is that it really reminded me of reading Meg Cabot's books when I was a teenager. So she wrote all the Princess Diaries books, but she also wrote another series called Nicola the Viscount. And so it just really reminded me of the good old days when I was a teenager and I was reading those books. So if you remember Meg Cabot, that kind of gave me a connection to that. Despite there being a romance in this, which is between Lucy and Captain James Dashwood, the primary relationship in this book is between her and her sister Margaret. Now, Margaret is described as 6 foot tall, very broad and very strong. And immediately I was like, I totally sympathize and understand and empathize because I'm 5'9", I'm very strong, I'm very tall, very broad. And she was talking about a lot of the difficulties she was having with the Regency clothing of that era, and that she was having to see an alteration dressmaker all the time to make things broader or make things longer. And I just totally empathized with her on that. I really loved that extra detail, but also how their relationship works. I think one of the things with when you have a neurodivergent character, it's hard to get an understanding of what's going on in their mind. So through Lucy's connection with her sister, she really trusts her and feels safe with her. So she's able to talk through all of her feelings and explain what's kind of going on inside her brain at events or with different people. And Margaret is also able to then explain to her if there's a social interaction where Lucy perhaps didn't do it the correct way, or, you know, so that kind of dynamic between them gives you an understanding, a deeper understanding of the inner workings of Lucy's brain. But also the really beautiful sisterly relationship that was so much like the sisterly relationships in Pride and Prejudice, but also reminded me kind of potentially between Jane Austen herself and her sister Cassandra. There's a TV series called Miss Austen, and it was so good. It was all about Cassandra Austen and her relationship with Jane, and just that really beautiful protective nature that she felt for her sister and her sister's craft, but also the quirks of her sister's personality. And I've just made that connection now that Lucy and Margaret are like Jane and Cassandra. So I absolutely loved that connection. Now, how this connects directly to Fast and Furious, besides the kind of night underground races and the kind of the criminal undertones, is Captain James Dashwood, the main love interest of Lucy. He is directly connected to Brian in Fast and Furious. So it's not spoiling much here, but he's an undercover cop, which Brian literally is in Fast and Furious. And his nemesis slash kind of almost best friend, they're making that kind of connection there. He's a Spanish character and his name is Dante Torres, which is so much like Dom Toretto that it was just amazing to kind of see like a Regency version of Brian and Dom in James and Dante. So I really loved that kind of direct connection, and the banter between those two I found so similar to the Fast and Furious movies. There's also one particular scene where Lucy kind of engineers a spring coil mechanism in the carriage to use as an extra bit of propulsion at the end of a race to push the carriage forward just to make it over the finish line. And it reminded me so much of the NOS that they use in Fast and Furious, where they kind of like flick that switch and the boosters go. And so that connection between the Regency version of what NOS would have been in the Fast and Furious universe was just so cool. Also, this concept around found family, I think, is, besides all the cars and the racing in Fast and Furious, is the core message of all of the movies, is this found family. And it's very much similar in the book. All these different ethnicities. You've got Irish, you've got Pacific Islander, which was really cool. There was Swiss, Spanish, and English. And so it was really nice to have all these different backgrounds come together. And I guess the dissolving of the class system, it was so nice to perhaps experience what that might have looked like in the Regency era. So I love that found family aspect of it too. And it's not really a parody. Like, you could really just take it as it is, and it's a serious, beautiful look at what it could have been like within the Regency era, but obviously with all the sprinkling kind of Easter eggs of the Fast and Furious world. And just a beautiful sisterly relationship within the story. And then on top of that, the kind of education behind neurodivergency and what that looks like for different people in different situations. So I highly recommend this book. It was an easy 2-day read, and let me know what you think of it. I just thought it was a really cool mashing of universes that I love separately. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to read this book and I need to talk about it with you guys. So highly recommend reading. Let me know what you think of the concept of this mashup in the comments below. Thanks for watching.